This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Kidnappers, a volunteer-based community access station. For more information, go to www.radiokidnappers.org.nz. Thanks to New Zealand On Air for making this program available through funding the Access Internet Radio project.
You're listening to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is the program called Acupuncture on Air, and it's our pleasure, as always, to have in the hot seat Heiko from the Acupuncture Clinic in Hastings. How you going, Heiko?
I'm really good, Ken, and you? You still got your T-shirts on after we had that bit of cold weather for 3 days?
Yeah, a bit of rain, but I thought it was quite muggy. What did you reckon?
Well, it was actually quite cool a couple of the times. I even had the heater on at work.
You've got a new T-shirt on, Heiko, and it's got your little logo on it.
Yeah, well, got to advertise that.
Didn't you iron it this morning? Look at the creases in it, man. Jeez. Anyway, we've got a special guest today with us. I'd like you to introduce him, Heiko.
I just got to check if he has his shirt ironed. We'll find out in a minute. No, we've got a very great guest from Australia, from Melbourne, Sohial Farzam. He's a registered acupuncturist in Australia, practicing in Melbourne. He lectures at the college in Melbourne. He also has quite a reputation for lecturing around the country, including, it will be soon, New Zealand, lecturing on many aspects of acupuncture, but particularly he has a specialist interest in mental emotional disorders. So good morning, Sohial. How are you?
Good morning, Heiko. Good morning, Ken. Thanks for having me on your show, guys.
Yeah, no, it's our pleasure to have you with us. Now, Sohial, Heiko's told me that you do a lot of your work treating mental or emotional disorders. Now, we've had a couple of people on the show in the past also talking about acupuncture and mental health. And I think in the main, people associate acupuncture with the treatment of, muscle pain and that sort of thing. But there's not a thing that apparently that acupuncture can't help, according to Heiko. So, you're seeing a lot of people with regard to mental health? Or are they coming to you for something else and then they find out that you can treat mental health as well? What happens there?
Well, a while back, I was seeing people for everyday conditions, like back pain, knee pain, headaches, digestive complaints. And we would end up diverting the conversation, of course, because there was a clear indication of underlying emotional and, mental health challenges. But these days, my practice is set up primarily to help people with emotional challenges. So, often my clients are actually already seeing psychologists, counsellors, and even other acupuncturists. So they come see me as part of their journey to overcoming some of these challenges. So it's very specific now.
Yeah, that's interesting because I was going to ask is your practice is obviously quite a bit different to mine, but what I'm finding now is that I'm now starting to get patients that come in more or less with their first port of call and they're saying, look, I'm on medication, I'm on anti-anxiety pills, or I'm on Prozac or something, and I really want to get off them, and I've heard acupuncture might be able to help. Are you starting to get patients like that just coming now?
Yeah, that's exactly right, Heiko. I mean, people are becoming more present, they're more conscious about their choices, they're educating themselves. There's unlimited resources online now for their conditions, so people don't necessarily permanently want to be on medication and, experience unnecessary side effects. So they are seeking therapies like acupuncture. They know that it has a really, grounded and holistic approach for some of these health challenges. So it's becoming a lot easier. We have, private health insurance covering it as well here. So that gives us a lot of more feedback. And, not to mention that people don't necessarily want to be on meds because, some of these meds in effect do affect their, innate ability to connect and engage with others. So, over time they find themselves becoming distant, they lack the ability to socialize. Consequently, they feel withdrawn and they feel isolated. And all these things, of course, exacerbate the original problem. And they want to, have a different choice.
I wonder, though, Sohial, that in New Zealand, apparently, I guess it's the same worldwide, probably in Australia as well, they reckon that 1 in 8 people are on antidepressants. It's probably the same way you are, right? But are you using acupuncture as a primary treatment for mental health, or as a complementary treatment tied in with Western treatments as well?
Yes, that's right. So myself personally, I'm using acupuncture solely. I do herbs on the side and a few supplements, but primarily it's all acupuncture. Now, I wouldn't be doing your listeners a good service if I don't clear out some of the other things even before acupuncture that people and, your visitors can look into. Some of these things, especially for like depression, which is a common one, of course, and I believe it's 1 in 8 in New Zealand who are on depression medication. So some things like, hypothyroidism is a common one, and that reflects people's, lack of ability to express their voice and opinions. Vitamin D and omega-3 deficiency, which impacts, serotonin production, which is the happy hormones. Excess sugar, which is a big thing in diet at the moment. These things deplete the body of vitamins and minerals and, especially the B vitamins, which are really important for nervous control. There's a lot of gut issues that people are having and everyone's aware of it. But in regards to acupuncture, it's just a fantastic protocol. I mean, the whole concept of acupuncture really is about helping people deal with change and long-term stress, which actually leads to mental health issues. The character of change in Chinese medicine actually means awareness. So it's about saying that, you have to be aware that change is actually possible and we need to embrace and face it. Whereas the character for depression actually has the radical or heart radical in it, which means we are disheartened. So acupuncture is fantastic because it really does help remove obstructions, stagnations, it supplements deficiencies, it helps the body rid, of toxins and all this kind of stuff. And at the end of it, people get, clearer minds, highly functioning focus, concentration, presence, power, productivity, and ultimately the key of acupuncture is to help people just feel gratitude, and that's where it all starts.
Yeah, one thing what I found interesting what you mentioned there about, like, particularly say with the the people having the excess sugar, and then then helps. Well, it leads to deficiency of vitamins and so forth, and then that causes the mental problem. Whereas I'm finding what's really useful now with the acupuncture is that the reason that people have these sugar cravings to begin with, because of, as we know, it's an underlying sort of stomach spleen energy imbalance. So if we use the acupuncture to treat that, by nature they just decide they stop craving the excess sugar, which then stops the depletion of all the nutrients, which then helps the mental mood. And this is some of the examples, I think, where the acupuncture really gets to the root cause of the problem. How do you find that?
Well, that's a really good point, Heiko, and it's spot on actually. So, sometimes these things, like these supplementary things with diet and sugar and all this stuff, that might be external and people might be doing that, but when they come and see us for acupuncture, if we can help, through our diagnostic features using the tongue, the pulse, and, the body signs, we can actually, in effect, bring balance to some of these organs, which then will actually help them make clearer choices and, divert their patterns a little bit differently, because people act with habits. So, everyone's doing habitual things. Maybe those things are no longer serving them. So getting some of the organs, like you said, spleen and stomach, that brings meaning and context to people's experiences. We look at things like, the kidney, which bring people back to purpose, the heart, which gives them the passion, the liver, which helps them adapt to these changes and become more resilient. Once these things are more in balance with acupuncture and herbs, then they can make different choices, which will actually affect them in a more positive outcome.
Yeah, another aspect that I know with many people who are suffering, whether it's depression or some other label that's been given to them, and, science and research and the medical professionals say, you need to do exercise. You need to exercise because, it's going to get more oxygen to the brain and so forth. But the problem is that these patients, they're too tired or too unmotivated to even start the exercise. And again, I find that with the acupuncture, I start to treat people, then they start to feel a bit more energetic. So then they're actually motivated to, go skipping, have a run, go to the gym, and then that then starts that positive, feedback loop. So then, then the depression starts to improve.
Exactly right. So, and that's the kind of things that we can afford to do with acupuncture. I mean, like you said, exercise is fantastic. Exercise has been shown to, build the capacity of the BDNF, which is a brain-derived neurotropic factor, which actually helps, changes in the brain, and the brain is so resilient to adapting to these changes. But like you said, if, people want to do exercise but they can't move, they've got joint issues, they've got gut issues, they're just literally not motivated, we can use acupuncture to bring balance to some of these organs, to give them this, this core innate energy in capacity that everyone actually has. And sometimes it's lost. So balancing these units and, like you said, changing the loop, we can get people to start taking more action on some of these things that will help them in life.
I wondered, do you find that people are surprised that they come to an acupuncturist and say, look, I'm going to stick a few needles in you, we'll give you some herbs, that it can actually help with their mental well-being. And I mean, what can you treat? Do you just treat mild depression, or can you treat severe psychosis as well? Do you draw a line and say, well, we can't do anything there?
So the way the psyche works now, the psyche, in my opinion, is actually in balance. And what makes us go out of balance, of course, and go a little bit out of whack is our value structure. And our values is based on how we project those things onto the external environment. So sometimes people come in from mild aspects of sort of, a bit of imbalance with depression or just early signs of it, and we can help that. But, I still see people with chronic schizophrenia and bipolar and, psychosis and all this kind of stuff. And what's happening is that the internal ratio of the body, the psyche, is going really out of balance. And what acupuncture does is actually brings balance to that extreme ratio. Now, the word ratio actually comes from rational. So when people are becoming irrational, that's because their psyche is going proportionally out of ratio. Well, that means basically they're projecting a lot of absolutes, whereas it's this way and no other way. And this happens when people have chronic resentments, for example, or, they feel guilty or anger towards someone. So they have a high perceived imbalance of someone doing something to them. Now, acupuncture works so innately at the core foundation of the body that actually brings balance to these things. Now, you can say, I'm going to treat you for some mild, depression, or someone who's got, psychotic behavior, but acupuncture does what the body needs, and we're just actually helping guide that. So no matter what we do, at the end of it, we're actually doing whatever the body needs, whether it's for mild depression or severe psychosis.
Right. Now, that's really great. And just to let our listeners know is that Sohial's actually coming to New Zealand. He's going to be delivering his first seminar/workshop in Wellington in early February. I know that he has lectured pretty well all around Australia, except maybe Darwin or Tennant Creek or somewhere. And what's interesting from New Zealand acupuncturist point of view is that we are predominantly seeing injuries because of our sort of ACC insurance setup here. But there is definitely a demand now as more and more patients are coming who want emotional help with their stress. And so as it's going to be great to have you there to be teaching us your skills in relation to this. So but just wondering, just if you could just give us a very brief overview of some of the topics that you will be teaching the acupuncturists here about mental emotional acupuncture treatment.
Yeah, sure. I'll be looking forward to that. So I'll be covering quantum physics and how our thoughts actually create our conditions. I'll be going through chronic pain and, believe it or not, how pain can actually make people feel they are being rewarded. So over time, unconsciously, they're in effect keeping the very pain they are struggling to remove. And chronic pain is a big deal all over the world. I'll go through about 50 acupuncture points. I'll go through what's called the 8 extra ordering channels, which is your favorite, Heiko.
Yep.
And their relationship to emotional mental health. And, of course, I'll go through conditions like depression, anxiety, ADD, ADHD, grief, bipolar, guilt, shame, and all the, above related conditions of mental health in depth, both Western medicine and, of course, the Eastern and Chinese medicine.
That's great. And unfortunately, we can't hear Ken, so I'll be talking on his behalf. And, he says thanks very much for coming onto the show.
Oh, absolutely.
And he was just wondering about your song that you're going to finish with. And he said, Surely it can't be as weird as anything that I've come up with. So tell us, what's your song and the artist that we're going to finish the show with?
Well, actually, I'm going to go for Metallica, Nothing Else Matters.
All right, and I think Ken's actually sort of shaking his head there, and he's saying, actually, all acupuncturists are weird. That's what he's saying. So, but anyway, we're going to enjoy that song, and we look forward to seeing you in Wellington in February.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you, Heiko. Thanks for having me, guys.
Okay, all the best.
Have a
Cheers.
good one. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Interesting chat there, Heiko.
No, that was really good. Sorry that we couldn't hear you.
That's all right.
But
people had enough hearing of me.
What Australians would want to listen to you anyway?
Exactly right. Just to remind the listeners, we want to come and see you for any help with our mental health. And it was interesting that Sohial was talking about herbs as well. So you can use herbs for mental health.
Yeah, definitely herbs. I mean, as you know, people have heard about St. John's wort. Yep. That's sort of one little herb that's become a little bit of a famous legend.
Yeah.
But in terms of Chinese medicine, there's probably 100 herbs that you can use depending what the mental emotional aspect is. But yeah, come and see me if you want to find me. But I think best just to go to my website, which is acu123.co.nz, and there's lots of information on there. You can click on conditions treated, depression and so forth. And otherwise, we look forward to and seeing you again next time.
Good on you, Heiko. As always, a pleasure. Look after yourself, and we'll talk to you next week.
Great. Cheers.
This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Kidnappers, a volunteer-based community access station. For more information, go to www.radiokidnappers.org.nz. Thanks to New Zealand On Air for making this program available through funding the Access Internet Radio Project.